What's going on, YouTube? Been about a week since we put a video out or so. Honestly, we just didn't get around to making a video. No real excuses for it. Got some deck panels hammered on. Got the last one built over there to go right where my wiring guy's in my way. He's over there making wiring happen. He's about done in here, getting the old wiring all wired up. So I don't honestly remember where we were at on the last video.
We talked about the headers.
Oh yeah, we got some headers. We got some headers out here. I don't know if you can see up there, but we got the headers back from ceramic coating. So they look like stainless now, nice and pretty and whatnot. So those will be going on whenever we get our motor parts back together and get a motor back. So tire guy showed up today. He's been lost all winter.
Yep.
Showed up, but we ain't got no tires, so maybe we'll bring some home next weekend for him. Get on the old cutting and grooving life again. I'm sure his forearm's probably gonna be wore out. Start banging on some body here soon. We got a plastic quarter panel and a plastic filler from, this is Skate's how it's pronounced. So we're gonna try the quarter panel being plastic this year, see if we can get it to hold up better and last longer and not crack and stuff like that, because Attica's kind of rough on quarter panels. We'll see.
Yeah, I just want to brief on some of this stuff. So like with the wiring, we talk about how it takes so long, and I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a definition of why. So like, for example, a lot of this stuff we run, it's called weather pack connectors. So you see here, and then I'll see if I can't take it apart. There you go. So like it comes apart, and it's basically a plug-in. We'll get wired onto these two ends, and then you got your plug on whatever you're going to. This happens to be the helmet blower. We run that because they're called weather pack for a reason. So they're like basically an old automobile style connector, and they're all sealed and everything. So when they're plugged in, A, they don't come apart because they're actually clipped together. And then B, you can see that little green seal there. It keeps any water, moisture, even the back of the connector actually has these little pieces of rubber seals right here, these orange ones that go in to the back of the connector. So once it's all together, I don't want to say it's completely watertight, but it's pretty damn watertight. So like to put those together, it's actually like a 4-stage crimping process. You use this crimper here and crimp the line, crimp the ends on there. You can see the ends get all, it's kind of hard to see in the camera, but the ends get all crimped on there, and then that end slides into your plastic housing and it actually locks in. It's tough to see this stuff in the light, but see those little tabs right there that stick out like wings? That like clips it into that plastic housing so it can't come out. So just in doing that, it takes some time. It's time consuming. We got several of those throughout the cockpit here. So your main coming into your ignition switch and your accessory switch is all weather packed. Your main ignition wire is weather packed. Your MSD wires are weather packed. Our MSD for coming out of the MSD switch to run a distributor or a crank trigger pickup, that stuff's all weather packed. That's about it. Oh, like the actual coil wire here, that's weather packed. This comes with the box, so that comes already like that. But that just makes it nice because all your connections, I mean, obviously we're racing these things in dry conditions, but you wash the thing every week. So anyway, you can kind of keep things from corroding, keep moisture from getting inside things. You don't want to have any silly gremlins at the track when it comes to wiring, because there's not a ton of wiring with these cars. They're pretty simple and straightforward, but you could chase a gremlin, ignition problems and things like that. And you know, the more clean and simple, more weather tight you make them, you know, the less chances any of that stuff happen. And so, you know, basically you can see you got the main harness coming down around. That's all routed neat. And then it gets into the switches, and had to wire in the switches, the MSD. You got a ground stud here. Your brake shutoff ground goes there. Your main MSD power ground goes to there. I got my fan wiring for my blower motor back there that's going to a ground. Tack wire here that comes out, that's going to a ground. You know, so just getting everything routed as neat as possible, clean as possible, to understand if you ever did have a problem where your wires are. I mean, a lot of people just kind of bunch this stuff up and zip tie it all to something, and then, you know, you see them at the track scrambling around and you don't really know what anything is. So just wanted to make that as neat and clean as possible. So that's about done, like Brandon said. Take you around here, like he tried to show you some of that fuel line and stuff, but that all runs up underneath here. We'll have that running. It's not all completely finished yet because we got to still plumb it to the actual pump, but he got that all done. That came out really nice. Gets it clean and neat. Yeah, we still got some of the oil plumbing to do and things like that, but things are moving along. Like Brandon said, he got most of his deck stuff done. That should really kind of snap together here in a hurry. That'll be done. We get that seat in next week. That'll be a huge step forward. We'll be able to completely finish the cockpit out. And then hopefully we do get some motor parts next week and Dad can start hammering away putting that thing together. So a lot of stuff going on. Just hurry up and wait on some of the stuff, but we're making as much progress as we can. And I don't think the weather is going to cooperate for the first night or two at Attica. I mean, looking at the extended forecast, we're 2 weeks out and I don't see much changing. It's been snowy and rainy. I mean, we've had a lot of moisture here in the last couple of weeks, so I don't see much changing there. I would venture to say that they'll probably get the first night or two rained out, which would be fine with us. And hopefully we're ready to go first week in April there. So we'll see. But anything else?
Oh, my Breakaway T-bar.
Yeah, we did get the Breakaway T-bar all done. So it's all painted up now. You can't even tell. It kind of looks like the original piece, but I think we showed you, we welded that slug in the end of there. So this just slips over that slug and then everything's bolted on. So if this corner of the deck gets hit, this can just rip off and we could replace it or put it back together if it's still there. Yeah, so.
The idea behind it is that it doesn't take the whole deck out if you hit the wall hard enough to take the right side panel out. Because normally, like when this T-bar is one piece, what will happen is when you hit the wall, it'll rip and then blow all the rivets out and pull the whole T-bar back. So then your whole deck, your whole spoiler, you lose it all. You know, and then it pretty much puts you out of the race. So the idea here is that if you hit it really hard, it'll pop right here and only this right side will go and you'll still have all your deck and stuff intact over here. It makes it easier to put back together and hopefully you can keep on with the race. That's the idea behind it.
All right, back out here on a Sunday. Pretty nice day outside, so this is the unfortunate part of race season, pre-season, is you catch one of these nice days and there's like a million things you want to go outside and do. Your body's kind of naturally telling you like, hey, idiot, you need to be out in the sunlight because you've been in hibernation all winter. And you're like, no, I'm going to go spend 6 to 10 hours in the shop, just like it's dark outside. So anyhow, we're here again, getting some stuff done. We did get all the wiring done, at least up to the point that we kind of need the motor in this thing to finish out the distributor wiring and plumbing and things like that for all your temperature sensors and all that stuff. But we're as far as we can be. Everything does work the way it's supposed to. You go through and you check all that stuff before you call it done, because we did have a problem. We got a switch from Quick Car that actually was put together wrong from the manufacturer, so we had to flip that around and make it work. But no worries, everything works. The brake shutoff works, all the ignition stuff works, starter switches work, master disconnect works, so all that's done. Brandon did get the back part of the decking all finished, riveted down, put the cowl back on there. Basically at a standstill with that. I can't put the windshield on until I get the seat in, get that all figured out. Got the holes punched in the oil cooler panel and got all that laid out. And then Chris Keller was nice enough to let us borrow his chassis stands. So this just gets the car sitting on its wheels. So that way when you put your body on and things like that, you can strap it and everything is where it's supposed to be. It just gets it off the ground so you're not laying on the ground and dealing with it. But right now what I wanted to kind of go over is some plumbing. I told you guys I'd show you this. and I wanted to show you exactly how it's done and why it's so time consuming. So I'm working on the line that goes to the oil primer. So it pulls oil out of the bottom of the dry sump tank and brings it into the primer. So when you spin your primer on the top here to put oil pressure into the motor before you start it, this is the line that brings that oil from the tank and pushes it into the motor. So what I did is I put the first fitting on, this fitting right here, put this on, got it all on the line. I held my line where I wanted it to go, how I'm gonna run it, and then I make a mark on my line about where it's gonna stop in the fitting. So now from here, I'll cut the line and I'll put it in the fitting, and I'll show you guys how that all goes together. All right, so hang tight. All right, so I showed you I get my hose all marked out. When you cut this stuff, because it's actually, this is like it's a braided line, so it's like a nylon outer braiding, and then inside there is some steel braiding, stainless steel braiding, and then you got your rubber line inside. So when you cut this stuff, you have to use, you can see I got some electrical tape here. You basically got to tape that so when you cut it, this end doesn't fray to the point where you can't get your fitting on, because this is the way this stuff works. So this fitting here, all right, this fitting here, take it apart real quick. All right, that's how that fitting looks. So basically what happens is this piece here gets put over the end of your hose. It's hard to see in there, but basically it stops up against the shoulder and there your hose does. And then there's barbs in there, so you can't see them, it's hard to see, but there's basically splines in here that when you put this end of the fitting back into there and start threading it down in, that it expands the end of this hose and it locks it up against the inside of this. So virtually, I don't know what the pressure rating is, but that hose cannot come apart from that fitting. So when you put your hose in, you basically shove this fitting part over top the hose, and if you can see where that edge of that hose is in there. All right, so it kind of stops up against that area there. Then, let's see if I can't set you up here. This is kind of difficult to do one-handed. There we go. So we got our fancy Earl's fitting clamp for your vise. This is just made out of aluminum, just goes in your vise and gives you a way to hold these fittings without messing up the aluminum finish on them or anything like that. And it's the best, like, 40 bucks I've ever spent. I just put this thing in here like so. Like that, fitting like that. Put some sauce on the old fitting. You don't need a ton of this stuff. You just want to make sure you got it all the way around. Just a real fine layer. So now this goes down in here like that. Get it started. And then you just tighten it all the way down on there. And like I said, when that fitting gets in there, it starts expanding that hose up against the barbs inside of here, and then that hose won't come out of there. Just like that. And there you go. That's how you put braided line together, just like that. So now I'll take this over to the car and put it in its position, get it all zip tied up where it's supposed to be, so it's running exactly how I want it to run. It's pretty pricey. These fittings, depending on which size you go with, they range anywhere from 20 to 50 bucks a piece per fitting. So the line itself, I don't know, I think it's somewhere 10 bucks a foot or something like that. It's pretty pricey as well. So you don't want to mess this stuff up. I mean, this is kind of one of those you get one chance at it. If you mess it up, it's not the end of the day. The fittings come back apart, but you don't want to waste any of this stuff, and you don't want to. You want to make sure you're thinking about how you're plumbing things and be a little bit methodical with it, because if you do make a mistake, it's costly. But yeah, that's how this goes for each of these type of lines. This is what we call the braided line stuff. We run this stuff on anything that's oil or kind of pressure lines. On the fuel lines, we'll show you how that works. It's a little bit different. It's a push-on fitting. So you basically heat the line up and then push it on, and when it cools down, it shrinks around the barbs to where it doesn't come back off. But that's all like fuel, things like that. We use those lines on. Anything oil related, we use the braided lines on. It's higher burst strength, higher heat strength, more abrasion resistant. You know, if a stone hit it or something like that, it's not gonna puncture it. So yeah, on each of the different lines in the car, there's probably some different method of the madness going on. But like I said, that's how all the oil fittings go for the most part. And there's different sizes. That particular one there is a -10. We go all the way up to -16. So we'll use -10s on like that primer feed. On the scavenge lines, we use -12, which is just a little bit bigger fitting. And then on like some of the return lines, get all the way into this big stuff, which is a -16 fitting. And this is where like you're into that $40–50 range for just this part. You get 2 of those on a hose, plus $10 a foot or whatever the hell that hose is. Some of these hoses end up being, you know, $120, $130 hoses just for one. So, and you got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-ish of these hoses to make up a dry sump system. So yeah, when people talk about plumbing a dry sump system, short of the tank and the pump, you know, you're several hundred to $2,000 just in hoses and fittings alone. So take your time, be careful, because this stuff isn't cheap. But yeah, that's the process. Every one of them hoses that are braided like that, we do the same way. And then when we get to some of the push lock stuff, I'll show you that too. Same process. You got any thoughts over there?
Body time, baby.
Yeah.
Time for the clock.
That's Brandon's getting started on actually making some body panels and getting that stuff going. That's why we got the car on the stands and started that side of it. So it's starting to come together. Oh boy.